Terry McLaurin is back. Sort of. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Again, you gold members, you know I'm going to be taking care of you soon. Got to get through a couple things. I think next week, hopefully, before that first preseason game, we can have a little session for you. And also stay tuned for that. There you go. And then here's another camp report, folks, but it starts with Terry McLaurin because he, of course, showed up to training camp today. I'm sure you know that. Now, what does this mean? So there's a few things you need to know. This is not a sign of progress for a contract extension. It is not that at all. I've been told by multiple people there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement. Both sides are pretty firm in how they view the situation. So it's a good thing that he's here, but it is not a sign like, oh my gosh, something is imminent. That is not the feeling I get from really anybody involved. So just understand that. He is the Commanders placed him on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list, because of a ankle injury that he supposedly was dealing with at the end of the season. All I know is that I checked the Eagles game and the championship game. He was not on the injury report. So I don't know what the ankle injury was. I do know that I do recall that there was something he was dealing with later in the year. So it could just well be that. But make no mistake, this is a hold it. And that's what he's doing. But he is here. So that's a good sign for that he's here. And for him, that you're not being fined $50,000 every day, for sure. So again, it does not mean that they're close to a deal. In fact, I still think this, the way both sides are dug in, it does feel like this could take a few weeks. They definitely see the value of McLaurin differently. Again, a lot of it is for Washington side is due to not just that he's turning 30 this year, but when the extension starts, he'd be 31 years old. So this is when receivers, they just don't get that big money. But for McLaurin, he sees some of these other guys getting stuff, and he feels he belongs in that neighborhood. The one thing I know with McLaurin, his whole career, he's been very resolute on who he is and what he can do and what he should be getting. So, he's again, I use the word resolute value, understands how he sets a value for himself, and that's what he's following through on. So that's a lot of what is going on. Whereas the team, they're looking at it certainly through their lens of how they value him. The fact that, listen, it could be just as easily for them to say, okay, you want this, then play out the deal. They would like to get something done. They would like to keep him here. So I think if he were a different guy, I think I could see them doing that. They like him. They want him. They just see the value differently. And can they close that gap? And how much right now, there's enough of a gap where he's not going to be on the field. And again, they list him as with an ankle injury. Well, we saw him after practice. So he was not on the field before practice. Got wind of this. A couple of us got wind of this on Sunday night. Or excuse me, this is Sunday. On Saturday night. So, but he did not sit there and watch practice. He came out after practice. If you've ever been out there, he came out kind of behind where all the fans were just to go down there. Saw him talking to Anthony Lynn. We saw Bobby Wagner go up to him, kind of give him a hug, and then start to kind of implore the fans, the ones who were on that side, chanting his name, Terry, Terry, Terry. And then he kind of hustled over to where his agent was in the end zone on one of the fields that was right in front of where the fans were. And then he signed autographs for about a half hour, and he talked to us for about a minute or so. So he was in a good mood, I will say that. And he clearly loved being around the fans. Clearly, you saw him give him some high fives. Again, signed for about 30 minutes. One young fan did yell, "Did they pay you yet?" And the response was, "You're funny." And he said, "No, they have not." So, anyways, but that's what he did. And he seemed upbeat. The ankle seemed pretty good, but he seemed upbeat. But he was Terry. That's what we're used to seeing. But again, make no mistake, this is a hold in. This is not just about, okay, he's got some ankle injury, he can't go, but he is here. No, this is a hold in. And, can they bridge the gap? Can they move closer together, or are they both firm as how they see the situation? because if they are, then this could take a while. At some point, both sides are going to have to probably give something to get this done. So anyway, so that was the scene with him. Meanwhile, and again, like he's not going to be practicing anytime soon. Meanwhile, Santana Moss, just a quick note here. They announced today that he was going to be going in the Ring of Fame. They surprised him with this announcement today, and well deserved. Like Santana's been, I've told you this on here before when I've had him on, always been one of my favorites to have covered. I just felt he was as professional as they come. He's also highly, highly productive. He was a really good receiver. That was one of the better trades that, that they, when they got him, instantly became a Cowboy killer in that Monday night game. A game that, if you're a reporter, what you remember is how many times you had to change your story because they kept coming back. And if you remember, too, at the end of that game, they almost blew it on the kick return because Dallas returned the kick after Washington took the lead 14-13. The Cowboys returned it to like the 40-yard line, but the Redskins held. So anyways, good for Santana, well-deserved. And he was a really good pro. And again, I use that, a true pro. So, and by the way, too, one of the fun things today was ESPN was on site, and you don't see that in fact, I've never seen that. So I actually got to spend about 30 minutes on the show talking with Tim Hasselbeck, Hannah Storm, Jay Harris, a lot of fun. Just, it's all part of like, there's a lot of interest in this team. That's why they were here. And so you guys should enjoy it. We've talked about expectations and how fans perceive it. I think you guys are excited and you should be. All right, let's get to practice because, that's now off the field. Now let's get back on the field. So the D-line movement, I want to talk a little bit about that because you see a lot of it, right? Like Dors Armstrong standing up and rushing from the inside. Like I think I'm really now, after watching some early work, intrigued to see how he develops this year with the way they're trying to use guys. And a lot, again, standing up, rushing inside. You definitely see it. You see other guys standing up and rushing, more guys doing that than certainly in the past. I just think they feel like they have more versatility and they don't have to confine certain guys to certain spots like in Armstrong. So I think one of the values of him in Dallas when he came here was going to be, rushing inside. Well, I think now you have more guys who can do that, who you have more guys to where you can use him in some of those roles. Saw that today, saw him go up against Brandon Coleman and just got inside with a really nice rush with the pressure as well. So I think he's had a good start to camp. Again, it's really hard to tell with no pads, so you don't want to say anything, but I think he's going to be a good, solid pro for them this year, which I think he was last year. But I think you could see maybe an enhanced version of that if it continues on this path. But I think that's what we've been seeing. He also got a spin move inside against Chris Paul. Chris Paul had to sub in for Brandon Coleman for a play. He got him on a spin move to the inside. After the play, I saw offensive line coach Bobby Johnson talking to Paul and just kind of like where he needs to put his hands, etc. But just again, Armstrong with a good start. And then when you look at like the D-line movement, the packages they can throw out there and the big groups they can run. Like there was one group today, you have Jacob Martin, then you have next to, all right, so you had 5 D linemen, and we've talked about this, but when they go to those 5 D linemen, they like Kinlaw at end a lot of times, right? So it was Martin up rushing, Kinlaw inside, then it was Eddie Goldman, Deron Payne, and Dietrich Wise. That's a big group. And there's a little bit of pass rush. You got some pass rush there, but you have just big bodies. And so like that's something they've used, experimented and tinkered with quite a few times. So there you go. Offensive line, Andrew Wiley back at right tackle. Again, he and Connelly are alternating. I still think that Connelly's going to take a minute to get used to what he's facing in the NFL. Like you still see some of that off balance. You still see the need to get that footwork down. Guys maybe getting around him just a little bit. I saw Cleveland Farrell get around him a little bit. So that's something that just getting used to that. And it's a long way to go for him. But I think that's something that's why I think Wiley, maybe does he emerge with that job? I think we'll see throughout the preseason, right? And when they get the pads on. But I am curious to see how I've talked about this the other day, how Connelly develops. We've seen the start. Let's see where it goes. The one thing they want, not the one thing, but one of the things they really love about him is that when he's at Oregon was known for his professional demeanor, right? And you heard James Crepea, if you listen to my podcast with him after the draft, he covered Oregon. He covered Josh Connelly. That's one of the things he talked about too, the maturity, the work, etc. He will get better. It's just that there's some things that you have to learn now that he's going through. And it's a good thing. Here's where it's a good thing. They don't necessarily need him to start. Andrew Wiley can start. Now, when Connelly becomes that guy, they're better because of the skill set he has, the ability to move in space and block it like that. Like you want him to get that job whenever it is, whether it's for the first game, the fourth or fifth, they will be better with him. However, right now with Wiley, like, the good thing for them is that if Connelly shows he isn't ready yet, he will be at some point. If he's not ready yet, then you have the veteran there, which is why he's here. So they are okay there. And I still think it can be a good line regardless, right? So especially with Tunsil, Coleman, and Biotish, that on that side should be pretty good. Mikey Sanders still continues to have a good camp, and that shouldn't be a surprise. I've just been impressed with him in the spring, in the summer as well. Makes plays, always around the ball, and made another one today. So there was one play where, and I think Dors Armstrong forced. I think it was the one where I told you that he got through Coleman, but I think he forced Jane Daniels. That's who was playing quarterback. For Jane to go to the right, and Daniels lofted the deep one to Jaylen Lane against Samuel in a deep post. And the ball was, because he's running away and kind of throwing back, he had to wait just a titch, but Samuel was right there, ended up picking the ball off. So a really good play by Samuel. And he's, like I said, he's shown really good things. He plays bigger than who he is. I mean, he's a buck 82, but he's not afraid to go against Deebo Samuel, but he wasn't afraid to go against A.J. Brown last year either. One of the differences to me in the cornerback room is the confidence. First of all, like Noah Igbenogany continues to have a good summer. And sometimes it may be against the backup receivers, but he's having a good camp. So, but I think the key is like Marshawn Lattimore plays with confidence and Trey Amos plays with confidence. I don't think they always had that here for sure. And it makes a big difference, especially at that position. So Noah Brown was back out on the practice field today. They will give him an occasional day off coming off he had the knee injury in spring and the kidneys in the season. He caught a nice ball today from, I think it was from Jaden, going up against Marshawn Lattimore. Lattimore has good inside coverage on him, so Daniels has to put it out a little bit wide. Well, Noah Brown, good catch radius, as everybody knows we used to like to say a couple years ago. Good ball, but Daniels put the ball where only Brown could get it, and he did. So good reach out on the catch. So this was in a 7-on-7 drill. So just a good play. But Daniels does a good job of keeping those throws away from trouble in those situations. That's something he did very well last year. It's why his interceptions stay low. So I mentioned earlier, Coleman lost that one block to Armstrong. Felt like he had a good block on one run play against Goldman, just kind of turned him inside, and a good job. So there you go. And then Ja'Cory Brooks. I know there's a Ja'Cory Brooks fan club out there, and I mentioned him the other day with some catches. One thing to know, it will be really hard for him to make this roster because there is depth at receiver. They may not have, they don't have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but they do have McLaurin, Samuel. McLaurin will be out there at some point. Jaylen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, Noah Brown. Then I think it'll be interesting with like Michael Gallup, who's had a solid camp, and KJ Osborne, guys like that, veterans. But Ja'Cory Brooks is a guy like, keep him around on the practice squad. That would seem to be where he is. But he's made a couple of plays. He did have you can see that he can play physical. I think that's one of his strengths. The question is, how will he separate in games like that? That's something to watch throughout the preseason because the speed thing was something that followed him, but he definitely can make those contested catches. He can play physical. Saw that against Jonathan Jones. Just kind of got his body into him, comes out open, gets the ball. So, there you go. I know that's for the Ja'Cory Brooks fan club. And then the Carlin Viggers fan club. Did a nice job against Gallup on a deep ball, a good breakup. He's had some good battles against him, and I think again another guy to watch. Like these are the undrafted guys that. The good thing is it is much harder for those guys to make the team this year because there's just better depth all the way around. And like at corner, I just mentioned with Brooks, and like it'd be an uphill battle there. Same thing at corner. It's hard because you have Amos, Lattimore, Samuel, Igbenogany, And so like and Jonathan Jones, like those are five guys who are going to be on the roster and deservedly so. And they offer a lot. So do you keep a sixth? And if so, who is it? They have some other veterans, Kayvon Seymour, some other veterans too there that it will be difficult, but you can find guys like a Viggers, like a Ja'Cory Brooks, keep them on there, see how they develop. Maybe you hit on something for sure down the road. Anyway, and then let's close out with the highlight of the day. So that came, listen, the offense has not been very sharp, and you can say conversely, I think the defense has been pretty good. I think the offense has missed number 17 for sure. The defense, though, has been good, the good pressure that they're showing. And I told you, like, I think this will help the offensive line too, and the entire offense in general, just the different looks that they're getting from them with some of the blitzes or just a lot of the pressure stuff they're trying to do, that helps. And anyways, so the last couple of days for the offense, a little bit bumpy. Today, bumpy. But for the defense, that's good. Anyways, highlight for the offense. So they're very big, as you know, on working in situational ball, right? So this time it was 30 seconds left, and there's a reason why they were 9-4 in one score games because they do work on these. Every team does. I just think that these guys have been way more intentional on working on situational football than most teams, than almost any team that I've been around. So this time, end of game, 30 seconds left. They're on the 40-yard line. They're down by one score. So it's 27-21 on the scoreboard. Well, the first team offense get a couple gains. You're only down to I think it was around the 25, and you have 5 seconds left on the clock. Well, they have one shot to the end zone. So Daniels drops back, throws the ball to the right corner, and I'm telling you, it was a perfect dime. Like they do that, they do that little the competition with the garbage baskets or the big, the waste cans, whatever in the corner of the end zone, the quarterbacks just try and drop a dime in there in the corner. You don't, I don't really ever see Jayden doing that, but you put him in a game in a competitive situation, and that dude is just going to drop in a dime, and that's what he did here. There, and I'm telling you, like it was to Jaylen Lane in the back corner of the end zone. Like there were three D backs there. Will Harris, I believe, was Will Harris. Sam was still, I believe, Tramos was there as well, or coming over. But Jaylen just goes up and Jane Daniels put it. Those guys are right there. He put it, and he's coming over from the middle and kind of coming over there. But he put it where only Lane could get the ball. It was an absolute dime, and he cut. But now, but he still has to make a tremendous catch. He has to outleap these other guys, and he does. And he comes down with it and taps his feet in. Now, I'd want to see the replay to make sure he had possession of the ball. It looked like I was standing right there. It looked like his feet were in, and I'm not watching possession and feet at the same time. I'm not an official, but it certainly looked like he completed the catch. But I would want to see the replay. However, a hell of a job, a hell of a throw, and a good job by Jaylen Lane. And then, and after the play, it's funny because like Mikey Samuelson was saying, his feet were out. And Jade went over to him. He's kind of putting his arm around him and just kind of waving to the fans. And Samuelson gets on the ground, starts pounding the turf with both hands, and Daniels is right there with his arm over him, kind of ribbing on him. And there's those two are obviously very tight, but Daniels just has so much fun out there that if you have a chance, if you're out there, you'll see it, just how much he enjoys competing, how much he enjoys being in the field, and you saw it there. And then you saw it after this play too, because then Marcus Mariota comes on, same situation, 30 seconds left. Well, this time throws the ball up to Mike Strachan. I can't remember if that's how you pronounce the last name, so I apologize for the Strachan family. But he makes a really good catch over the defensive back as well, and that was the last play. I think that was the last play of practice. So that led the offense to like Jayden Daniels over there. He runs down over there and grabbing him. The offense goes running over to the fans and starts slapping five with them. So like it ended on a good note. So the offense was not having a ton of success, not producing a lot of energy earlier in the practice. They did it in that drill, but it was a good way for them to end practice. And of course, I'm going to guess that Samuelson probably insists that he was still out of bounds. I don't know. They will watch film and they will know for sure. Anyway, folks, and by the way, one of the things too, when the Sports Center crew was up there, and we were talking about with Tim Hasselbeck, was talking about the competitive drill, that bag drill that they do before practice. And he brought up a good point too, which is with that drill, like they will show that they filmed that drill and they will show that to the team later and maybe single out a guy, good or bad. Like if you're not giving effort in there, they're going to single you out in a meeting with the video saying this is not acceptable. So when you talk about standards, that's how you set standards. You say this is how you do it, and then you show examples of yes or no. Because if you don't, then how are you basically keeping everybody, making sure they're doing it? And this team, that's one of the things Dan Quinn does, but it's why I think there's a lot of energy in that drill, because nobody wants to be shown during a meeting on video like that. So anyway, folks, that's it for me. Again, I'll be back on Monday with another episode doing these daily camp reports. Hope you're enjoying them, and I'll talk to you next time.